last 3 weeks we've been talking about kids.
This conference
Sure, this
will
bring
now
up
be
all
recorded.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call the meeting to order on July 30th. And our first thing of business is 2020 audit report.
Okay, and I believe, I don't want you over there, yeah.
Oh, over there.
Yes.
You get your own table.
Oh, my gosh.
And that's because we have people online, so
That are
they
listening.
can't hear.
All right, well, good morning. April Swartz. I'm here with Barney and Associates in Manhattan, Kansas. We had a pleasure to perform your audit again this year, and you gave us an extra fund because we got to audit Sparks money as well. So I will go through the audit briefly, but I'll say at the beginning that there were no adjustments made or proposed to Tina. So the numbers you're seeing today in the financials are the same numbers you would have seen when you looked at your year-end reports. So again, excellent job done by Tina and her staff. And no findings whatsoever on the audit. So the letter that's included separately is our required communication. It simply goes through and explains that these financials are your responsibility as the governing body of the county and of the staff and administration that prepare them. Our job is to present an opinion on them, and we feel that the financial statements are fairly stated, so it's a clean opinion. There were no findings or issues in the letter, so it is a clean letter. Having said all of that, if you'll turn to page 4 and 5, which is the actual financial statement for Marion County. There's 2 pages. You'll see down the left-hand side of page 4, we list all of the funds that the county utilizes in their accounting system. And there are 2 pages worth, so we'll be kind of flipping back and forth. And then the first column on to the left is your beginning cash balance from your prior year audited numbers. The cash receipts that each fund took in, the expenditures for each fund, and then the ending cash. Expenditures include accounts payable and encumbrances, so we add those back in the next to the last column so that we can come to what the actual cash balance in the bank was at the end of the year. So if you would look at page 5, the first subtotal line down from the top, it says total county funds. The county started the year with $13,060,757 in all of its funds. You took in $22,462. You expended $22,134,000, and you ended the year with $13,388,000. Also, as I mentioned, we added back the outstanding encumbrances, so the bank balances as of the end of the year for the county funds were $13,784,410. And you can see down below, we list where that money is located. We have the different banks that the money's in, checking accounts, CDs. You have some money in the Kansas Municipal pool, and then the ending cash balance at the end of the year then ties to that number above. So really what you took in was pretty much what you spent, and it's hard to look at a KMAG, which is your method, financial statement, and say, did the county make money or whatever. That's not your motive, it's not a profit motive. So as you know, all kinds of things affect the numbers. So this year, one of the big things that affected you was the spark money. So we'll talk about that just a little bit later. I want to show you a couple more things. That's the financial statement, and then everything behind that, the next several pages, page 6 through page 15 are the required footnotes to those financial statements. Most of them are static footnotes that stay in here every year. They talk about how you report, what method you use. They talk about the funds that you use, the type of accounting basis you use, budgetary information, and that will all change this year because the budget rules changed. So that footnote that's been the same forever will now be changing due to the government's, some of the rules that were changed regarding budgeting this year. Page,
Before you,
yes.
Can I interrupt with
Yes,
a quick question?
please do.
Just right at the start, page 6.
Yes.
It discusses the extension council.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
even though that's changed, that's still,
Well, for this year, there were still some funds that flowed
Okay.
in and out, and so, and I did back, if you look back at page 5, you'll see that the extension council cash balance is now 0 there.
okay,
It used to be part of your financials, and moving
Yes.
forward,
Okay.
that will change.
just
Yes.
wrapping up the previous years.
Yes.
Got it, thank
Yeah.
you.
Let's see if there's any other notes that are worth pointing out. Really, again, like I said, they are the standard notes that we always have. Page 10, if you'll turn to page 10, this is the footnote that describes the debt that is outstanding for the county of Marion. All of the payments were paid as scheduled, on the amortization schedules and timely. It starts off with your GO bond. You have a GO bond that has a small balance remaining on it of $121,000. You had a KDOT revolving loan that actually was paid off during the year. And then you've got a variety of equipment leases and other type leasing arrangements that you've done. And you can see there the transactions, several new ones this year. Your motor grader, your dozer, your mower, and then your transfer station lease purchase. And when an entity reports on the KMAG method, which is what you guys do, this liability doesn't show up on that financial statement. It's a little different than a business where you'd have your assets and your liabilities and your equity. On KMAG, it's simply a footnote disclosure, so it's not actually booked. Page 11, excuse me, I got a frog in my throat. Page 11 is the maturity of that debt we talked about. The first section is your principal maturity for the debt, and then the bottom section is the interest that will be payable, assuming you pay everything out as scheduled on the amortizations. At times you pay things off early, so that would affect the amount of interest that you would pay. Any questions on the debt? Then there are a few more pages of notes. Again, I'll have you turn to page 14. There's a couple of new notes due to the COVID-19 pandemic. These were notes that were suggested by the KMAG authors, so we included them. Basically talks about the fact that we did have a pandemic in note 15 at the bottom of page 14. Just explains, there's really no way to measure the effect that it will have long-term on entities. And then page 15 page 15, note 16 gives you a little more detail about the money you received on Spark, which we will talk about more when we get to that section. But your county received $2,389,886. You distributed $1,831,467,000, and the balance was used by the county for allowed expenditures. And I will say, when we came to do it, of course, she had everything I needed on a stick drive, which is just amazing. Because the hardest part of the single audit this year for counties, and we do 12 of them, is the fact that counties normally don't have to really pay close attention to their federal dollars, as far as the health department gets lots of federal grants and they have to do reporting on them, but they don't really keep track of exactly what we got, what was the CFDA number, which is the Catalog of Federal Domestic Assistance. We had to have all of that for these single audits. So counties that had a little bit of a problem, it was mainly in the health departments. It's the little bitty grants that come in that not everybody's aware of. So Tina does a good job of monitoring county-wide, but not all counties have that function. So the sheriff will get some small federal grants, and maybe the lake or parks and rec some will get a federal grant, but it's just becoming even more important that commission be aware of all the grants that you're applying for, that you're aware of the cost of administering those grants, because it's not always beneficial to take a grant. If the grant is going to be small and it's going to require your administrative staff to do a ton of more work, sometimes it's not worth the work it creates. And a lot of times people that are going to get that money don't think about that aspect of it. And usually it's the small grants that want the most reporting.
Freeze over is free.
There's nothing free. You're exactly right. All right, then if you'll turn to page 17, I did mention earlier there were no statutory violations for the county this year. There generally never is, but on page 17 is where we compare each fund and their budget to what was spent in the fund. So you can see overall the county was $10,899,000 under budget for the year. And that sounds huge, but a lot of times you budget a lot in funds, even though you may not think you're going to spend it, because in those non-levied funds, you need to budget it so you have the spending authority if and when you choose that you need to spend it. So but you definitely were under budget. General fund alone was under budget $1.7 million. So there was not a single fund that was even $1 over budget, which is awesome. Then if you'll turn to page 18, we're gonna look at the general fund, and then I won't go to each of the other individual funds on their own, but I'll just kind of go through the way it's set up. Your general fund, you can see you have it's on page 18. You've got your 2019 actual, then you've got your 2020 actual versus budget. And then as you go through that, you can see, if you'll turn to page 19 where we total the cash receipts, you can see that the county collected $5,324,000 in your general fund. You budgeted to collect $4.8 million, so you collected $510,000 more than you expected, which you always budget conservatively on the revenue, so that would be expected. Then if you'll turn to pages 20 through 23, these are the expenditures for the general fund departments. So we always get to pick on the county commission because you're always listed first. So you can see that as a commission, your budget was $102,980 at the top of page 20 in the third column. And you expended $91,786, so you were under budget by $11,000 for your department. The budget law applies to the funds in total. So even though if you look county clerk, Tina's was over $714, that's okay because the fund, it's a fund as a total. So you're going to have funds that will be a little over. You're gonna have funds that are gonna be under, and that's just the nature of it. It's an operating budget, so you strive to stay within it, but there are unexpected things, especially in these times, that we don't anticipate. So then it lists each department, and so you can look at each department and how they came out with their budget. And again, if you turn to page 23, you'll see that overall, the general fund was under budget by $1,766,000. Any questions on that or the way it's set up? Okay, then I won't go through all the funds. All the pages behind here are all the additional funds that were listed on that first financial statement. Some of them are budgeted and some of them are not. So you can see how each fund operated during 2020. And again, you've seen these numbers before, so there's nothing new here. So now we'll go back to page 66, which is the beginning of the new section of the report that you wouldn't have had before. Because the county received and expended in excess of $750,000 of federal money, you're subject to the single audit, which is an additional audit we do at the same time that we're doing the financial statement audit. So every county in Kansas was subject to the single audit this year due to the spark money that was received. So there are two additional reports related to that. The first one on page 66 is our report on internal control over financial reporting and compliance in accordance with government auditing standards. Whenever you have a single audit under federal law, that kicks in the government auditing standards, which just gives more things for us to look at. And in this report, we have to report any deficiencies we see in internal control or material weaknesses that would put at risk those federal dollars. And we had no findings or significant deficiencies for the controls over that federal money. I see a blank page in there. Page 68 is the report over compliance on specific programs. So what we have to do for a single audit is, first of all, we have to determine, is your entity a low risk or high risk? Well, a county in Kansas that reports under KMAG will always be high risk because that's the way the rules are written. So all that means is when we do a federal audit, instead of testing 20% of your federal expenditures, we have to test 40. So there's no way you could ever be low risk because just by the nature of the fact you don't report under general accepted accounting principles, you'll always be high risk. Not a problem though. So basically then we go through and we say, what were the total federal dollars? What was your program? We have to evaluate each program, whether they're a type A or a type B. Well, Spark is definitely a type A, and anytime you have a new federal program, it's considered a high risk program. So the fact that you had one large high risk program that met the 40% threshold, that was the only program we had to test. So this may be way more info than you want, but I'm just kind of explaining how we pick. So then that was the program we tested. So then we met with Tina and we got the documentation on how did you handle the Sparks money? What was your process around it? It was a moving target every day for you counties because they changed the rules every 5 minutes, and it was crazy. So there was some leniency in the beginning. We were testing for making sure that you got it done within the time frame time frame of performance. Well, that even got extended for counties. At the end of the year, you were allowed to spend a little more after the end of the year. So that's what we do. We go through the compliance supplement the federal government puts out, and it basically tells us the types of things we're to look for in your program. And in lieu of any guidance, we have to go through and figure out what we feel is important. So the main factors in this program for Sparks was, how was the money handled? How was it deposited? How did you decide who received what? Every county did it differently. Some counties did it based on population. They gave that much to their cities. Some gave it based on number of pupils to the school districts. Some waited until entities requested money. If they didn't request any money, then they didn't get allocated any money, which my mind is blown by some of the small communities that didn't request any of the Spark monies because it really would have been helpful to them and really no paperwork for them other than the application. So the other thing is normally when you get a federal grant and you distribute it to others, they're what's called subrecipients. And generally when they're subrecipients, the county has a big fiscal responsibility to follow up on what they did with the money, as well as the auditors have special steps they have to take. But the federal government exempted the Spark money from those full requirements for subrecipients because they knew there's no way your county staff can monitor everything that these entities do. Now, they did apply, they gave receipts and invoices to document it, but you don't have to follow up and go make sure you've looked at the piece of equipment and they've reported back to you and that type of thing. So they did give us at least a break in that area. So on page 70 is the total of the federal dollars that were expended by the County of Marion. So the first column there of numbers is what I refer to as the CFDA number. That's the Catalog of Federal Domestic Assistance. So each grant you get from the federal government has a number. Now you'll see there are a couple items in the Department of the Treasury area that have the same number because they were all administered out of the same COVID CARES package, but they are different programs. Sparks was a different program as far as testing. So you can see the bulk of your money was the Spark. And I already mentioned those numbers before, the 2.3 you collected, or almost 2.4, and then you remitted 1.8 of that back out to subrecipients. So what we did is we went through and we took a sample of the payments the county made for county items and a sample of the things that were paid to other entities. And then for the county items, well, for all of them, then we traced them to the copies of the invoices that were, or the payroll records that were provided by Tina to substantiate the fact that they were valid expenditures. And then we also reviewed the reports that were submitted to the state of Kansas to make sure they were submitted, which they all were. Counties were very good at getting that done, and then most counties had already gotten back their letter from the state saying that it had been closed and everything's good. So that would be the single audit. Any questions on that or on anything in the report? And you will be subject to that now, probably for the next 3 or 4 years, is what we're hearing, because of the federal dollars that will continue to flow through the counties. But the first year is the worst as far as getting it set up and then moving down the line. So, well, if there are no questions, that would be my report. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Do we have to accept it or?
I don't believe so. I don't think you have to do anything.
Oh, and one thing I didn't mention. Once it was complete and Tina approved it, then we have to upload that to what's called the Federal Clearinghouse, and so that's where all the single audits go. So that has been submitted. We submit it, and then she signs off on things, and then it gets submitted to the Data Clearinghouse. We get an initial email back that says it's been received, and then once they've reviewed it, we get another email back that says it's been accepted, and we have received that email, so it's complete and done. It's funny because in the past it has taken weeks to get that email that says it's been accepted. So I don't know if they're just so overwhelmed, they're just hitting the button and saying, we're accepting it, we'll worry about it later. I don't know, but it has been accepted.
So what about with the state?
There's nothing
I mean,
additional.
not with the single audit, but with our regular audit
Yeah,
report.
so
Has
you
that
will-
been submitted yet?
No, so you do that in the past. Our firm doesn't submit those.
Okay.
But if you need the instructions, I think you've done it in the past. You guys submit them because
Yeah,
there's a fee involved in it,
Right.
$150, I think. And our firm has just always taken the position to not upload those for audit clients. Some firms do it, but we just never have.
All right, well, usually I think we get some sort of an email, you know, to push the go button on that.
Yeah, it's ready to go, and I can send you an email, but this is your go button, you're ready to
Okay.
go. Once it's approved, then you can submit it to the state.
Okay.
All right, thank you again.
Have a good
Thanks.
day.
Stay safe.
Ready to commence with paydays,
Okay.
and we need to approve 2 checks. Is that? how we do that?
Yeah, is it okay if I go ahead and share the sales tax numbers and
Yes.
and some of that? Okay, so we do have sales tax in the amount of $78,908.44. And then we have, the grand total payday is $1,121,171.96. And in your packet, then you do have, we did have invoices to Elcon and Western Associates this time.
Make a motion to approve the Western Associates at $1,037.45.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I would abstain, so it's 3 to
3.
3 pass.
One abstain.
Okay,
I'll make a motion to approve the Elcon Services, 8/19/02.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
Got 3 yeses, 1 abstain. Passed.
and the payroll board and the book are there, and did anyone have any questions on any of the expenditures?
I see the transfer station payment was in there.
Yes,
Right.
we did have a lease purchase payment, this time for the transfer station. We also had our quarterly allotments to, those other agencies that we support through the county budget.
Anybody doesn't have any other questions, I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve grand total payday at $1,121,171.96.
Second.
Your second, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Against? It's 4 to 0. Motion passed.
Okay. All right, then, really, I just need to make sure everyone signs off on the payroll and on the warrants. And then we do have the comp time report here that, I don't know if that went
That's
around.
the-
Yeah, we
It
looked
already
at it,
went
yeah.
around, okay, great.
No mail.
No mail in there today. Thought I'd save it for Monday.
Thank you. We're open for public comments now.
Since it's a special meeting, we didn't schedule
Oh,
any
okay.
public comments
Okay.
on here, so. And I don't believe there's anybody online either,
Okay.
just us.
Any commissioners have anything to add or talk about?
It's not on the agenda.
Yeah, until Monday. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Okay.
Oh, audit.
short and sweet.
Payday in 25 minutes. Good job.